lounging, son.
Welcome back to the Comic Lounge. My name is Ryan,
And I'm Manny.
and we are back with another issue of New Mutants, the Rob Liefeld run. And we originally were just going to do 86, his first issue on the run. I don't know why that was going to be the only one I thought about doing. But after we read it, we decided let's go through every single issue of this run. We're going to throw each one of them under the microscope, so to speak, and then we're going to jump into his X-Force after that. So we got quite a few issues that we're going to get through. This is a big one, though. This is first appearance of Cable. Iconic
Yes, it
cover.
is.
This is the second print. That's why the background is gold, not red, like on the first print. I have a first print, and I cannot find it. For some reason, I don't know where the hell it went, but that's neither here nor there. It's interiors to the same, you know?
Yeah, I
I
have
think
my
it's
my
important.
trade,
Yeah.
the original trade that collected all this, which is from that great period of early '90s Marvel trades that are very specific in the page stock and coloring. I think you probably know what I'm talking about. Like they're really
I
awesome.
I do. I do. They did a better job of reproducing stuff back then.
They did, man. Like this is a
In
great
terms
trade.
of
Yeah.
the I hate well, look, they reproduce stuff very well now, comic books in general, but the recoloring of stuff from the newsprint is different. You know, it's not as it kind of takes away from the comic a little bit. It takes away from my reading experience, is what I'll say. Yeah, I remember you were showing off some. I think it was when we were doing the Demon Bear, and you were showing the interiors of the trade, and I was like, okay, well that coloring's pretty good. You know, it's pretty close to the original art. It's
Yeah.
just the paper's not like mine, which is
Not
kind
what.
of brown, a little brown. But you know what? I don't know. I kind of like when my older comics have a little bit of a brown to them. Let's get into it, dude. So this is an iconic cover. You know, Liefeld at this point. This is his second issue of the run, and already so many new concepts have been introduced. And these covers are inked by McFarlane.
Yes, they are.
I fucking love when Todd and Rob collaborate on a piece. I think it's phenomenal. And look, you know this cover has been homaged
Dude,
so
so many
much.
homage so many times. I mean, that image is seared in my brain. Like it was definitely like this comic was like a defining comic for me. That image is a defining image for me. All on board for what was going on in the mutants when this was happening. So, I was full in, man. And going through this again just sort of reminded me like why I love this comic book so much and why it's probably one of my favorite comic books that I've ever had.
Yeah, I'll break kayfabe. I was 3 when this came out, so I did not pick this up off the stand. This was a comic that I remember seeing in Wizard for like hot books or whatever, and key issues, stuff like that. You know, like how they have it in the price guide. It was one I always wanted to get, but even then, by the time I was really getting comics and thinking about getting back issues, it wasn't a cover price book. I was not buying books unless they were cover price back then. You know, it was kind of
Yeah.
hard to ask my mom, be like, hey, can you buy me this one comic for 40 bucks? Also, I was like, well, I'd rather get more comics than just the one. So obviously, you know, an adult, I got a job now, I can buy whatever the hell I want. So
Yeah.
I got the first print, I got the second print. But yeah, I think that that cover too is iconic to me. And there's a lot of covers in this run that are completely iconic. And I think that Rob in general creates iconic covers. He knows how to make a great cover, how to pull you
Uh,
in and make you want to
I
pick up that
agree.
book. So
Yep, totally.
we open up, and Louise Simonson is still writer on the book at this point. I'm not sure if I can't remember. I mean, we'll get there. It's not important. But eventually, Rob just goes straight to writing him, or at least plotting, and then he gets a scripter on board. But Luis is still on board with this. We open up with the Mutant Liberation Front again, and he created all these characters, right?
I believe so. And that's what I was gonna say is like I know Louise is still listed as writer, but going through this again, Rob is obviously very involved in the plotting and storytelling as well because these are Rob Liefeld characters. Like the pacing is very much like what he would go on to do in some of his comics. Like he loves to open in like the middle of action and get you right in there, which is, I mean, he's opening with this like great splash page of
Yeah.
Wildside, like just jumping at you. You know what I mean? Like it's got all the things that make Rob like such a great comic book artist. And I mean, what a great opening page. Like it's quintessential Rob Liefeld. right off the bat, it's letting you know what the fuck you're in for in this great comic book.
Yeah, don't judge me for rolling this comic. I couldn't look at that ad for that video game. It was distracting. I was
Oh,
trying
you
to
should
look
see.
at.
You should see. I mean, I got my old trade, and it's dog eared, and
Yeah.
yeah,
Um,
yeah,
so
yeah,
yeah, I mean, I love his character designs. I would say this is like it reminds me of like the way Jack Kirby would open up a book. You'd always have that full page spread followed by usually a double page spread. Like that was definitely something that he utilized a lot. And like you'll flip. And while this is not a full double page spread, we do have the half double page
you do
spread.
have the introduction of the characters. Like again, you just mentioned Kirby, and especially with Rob's artwork has changed like any artist throughout the years. But like at this period right now, like I mean, it's to me it reminds me of Kirby, and not it, I know their styles are somewhat different, but like it still has the same feel and vibe. I think
And I'm pretty
it's
sure like
dynamic. It's dynamic art, like dynamic layouts. Like using the best of the page, like using a lot of action and movement and momentum to grab you.
yeah, and obviously I think definitely Art Adams was definitely an influence on a lot of those guys. I know that like on the Kayfabe channel they talked about that recently, like and Rob's talked about it on Observations
Yeah,
plenty of times, about how much Art Adams was an influence. But I mean, I you can't get away from Kirby. I think Kirby is always going to be. I mean, whether it's a direct influence or it's an influence of an artist that was influenced by Kirby, Kirby has his imprint on everything in comics. I think nowadays, I
and
think it's rare that you don't see a little bit of whether it's the storytelling or the character design, like or the panel layouts. There's so much of that throughout. But I
I
love the characters. You got Reaper, Strobe, Wildside, Forearm,
tempo. Yeah,
Thumbelina. You don't expect it to be kind of like this heavier set character, Thumbelina. You think of like a petite, small, but
yeah.
I think it's kind of funny in that way.
I
And
want to
there,
point out
yeah,
there's a panel, the second panel on the bottom row with Forearm, like punching all the guards.
yeah.
That reminds me a lot of like one of my favorite artists is Sal Buscema, and
Mhm.
he was well known for doing that like that famous like Sal punch panel. And to me, it seems like Rob is homaging that. Like
It's so funny that you mentioned that, dude, because just yesterday, I had a few months back, I had picked up some old Captain America
yeah,
issues, and mostly because of Rob. He would talk about like old runs and stuff, and he does it all the time. So like I picked up little chunks of like Sal Buscema, Captain America, some of John Byrne Captain America, like the Roger Stern stuff, and
yeah,
I was reading the Sal Buscema, and I was like, oh man, and then I read it this morning, so it's like it just like it's kind of funny that you did a callback to
yeah.
Sal, but yeah,
No,
I
you
mean,
you 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 see how like you know one thing I've always loved about Rob too is that like not only is he a comics pro, he's also like an unabashed fan, and he's
yeah.
always homaging other artists and pulling from other artists, and like he doesn't hide it, man. Like he loves the medium and is well versed in like all the different artists, so he pulls from all these people.
Yeah, and before, I know we're talking about New Mutants, but before I flipped the page, I just have to say that I think that like cartoonist kayfabe has definitely turned me onto a lot of stuff, but I think Rob Observations is the perfect like combination because he'll go back and talk more about stuff from the big two, whereas you don't
Yeah,
see that stuff necessarily as much with Jim and Ed. To be honest with you, I bought more stuff on Rob's Rex, like than Jim and Ed
yeah,
in recent memory because like he'll talk about these old like Doctor Strange books or these old Marvel Premiere, these old Cap runs, Fantastic Four, stuff like that, stuff that I know about but never really like really knew, in terms of like what was going on in the story. And he gets you so amped up, dude. Not only does he get you amped up talking about comics, but like, look, how do you not get amped up looking at his
yeah,
comics?
dude.
I
I
mean,
mean, like I was what 12 when this came out, maybe like
yeah.
13 or so, like how could I not be into this shit? You know what I mean? Like it's fucking great looking,
Oh, dude, yeah, I can only
And
imagine.
there were when Rob came onto the scene, look, when this issue dropped, there was nothing like this out, man. Like this was like a paradigm shift in the X-Men books and the New Mutants, and it's like it's New Mutant with this issue, and when Rob came on board, New Mutants became a completely different title.
Oh yeah, dude. Look, I mean, if you go back and you look at the numbers, I don't have the exact numbers, but you can see like the jump, right? And he continues to
Mm-hmm.
do that. And like just the fact that this book had a second print, I don't think that was commonplace that comics were getting
No.
second prints. You know what I'm saying? So the need and the desire, the want for his stuff was there. And I love the the MLF. They're going to
Yeah.
break out Rusty and Skids, the two mutants that I had no idea who the fuck they were prior to reading 86. But obviously they're part of the New Mutants that I didn't know about. But this is where I really this is where we meet Cable. I mean, we met Cable at the end of 86 in that one tiny panel,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
this
Which
is
is that
like
that page is reprinted in the book I have. So,
right, but this right here, dude. I love the intro to Cable, dude, and
dude,
the
one of the
angle of
coolest
him.
looking characters. Cable is one of my favorite comic book characters.
Same.
And visually, like, I mean, as soon as I saw him, like, he's a Terminator, he's a $6 million man. Like he's all these things that, like, we grew up loving and watching, and he's such a great, cool character. And, like, the element of mystery to him was also great at the time because we didn't know who he was. He was totally new, and just great introduction. Great introduction.
Yeah, I think what's interesting too to me, going back and reading it, knowing who Cable is, knowing some of the mysteries that have been solved, over because of time, right? Because we're going back and reading an old comic, we know where Cable ends up. We know where some of these characters end up. We know what's going to happen. So it kind of makes it a more interesting read, right? At least in my opinion, because you're like, well, how much did he know was going to happen prior to this? How much of this was like
Right.
kind of trying to throw readers off?
Right. Right. Yeah. How
Because
much of it was misdirection and
obviously Louise Simonson is writing, but this is a Rob Liefeld creation. You know
yeah,
what I mean? Like this is
exactly.
not.
So the
I mean,
backstory, the concept is Rob's. So just
look,
like
I
I'm
just
saying, he was must have heavily been involved already in co-plotting. Like with Louise, because this just, I mean, if you compare it to like Youngblood and some of the stuff that Rob did on his own later, it tracks and it runs parallel to the same type of storytelling he showed in those books.
well, yeah, and he talks about he's talked about when he's done his like history episodes and the creation of these characters, how when he got offered the book, he said he wanted to plot. He said he wanted
Yeah,
to like take over. So not to kind of push Louise out, but just that was his desire. If I'm going to do it, I kind of want to do it
yeah.
my way. And
He
you
had
can't.
he had ideas to change the title, and I mean, he did. He obviously knew what he was doing because look at where we are today with these characters.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Okay, we go back to Asgard. The rest of the New Mutants crew is about to leave. They've won their battle. What I also was like very conscious of as I was reading this is kind of a clearing of the decks, right?
Mm-hmm.
Getting some characters kind of, for lack of a better way of saying it, out of the way, so that the team that Rob is going to eventually have is going to be in place. Like Danny Moonstar is now going to stay in Asgard, and we
Right,
and
she
we see
becomes a
that.
Valkyrie.
Right. So we see that and like watching like Rain, and she's like super upset, that she, because that's her best friend. And I love that's something that I've really loved about the New Mutants and stuff from what I have read, because I haven't read the whole run, but is that kind of like more of a family dynamic than you saw with the original five. Like the original
Yeah,
five didn't really have that. And I don't know if it's because of like, just the way they were written in the 60s when Stan and Jack were doing it, but there's definitely more a sense of a brother sister type thing going on with this
yeah,
team. I mean, even like Boom Boom, I think it's in the next issue. Again, breaking kayfabe, we're doing 2 episodes today, but like not wanting to be looked at like a sister type, like, and we'll see that. But I love the dynamic between them. I think that this is interesting. I know that there's a couple other teammates that will not be a part of the team moving forward, especially once it goes past issue 100. But yeah, I think it's kind of cool to kind of see the seeds planted, you know.
mm-hmm.
And we get back to Skids, which I still can't get over that fucking name, dude. It's such a corny name. So she's sitting there. They're in the hospital. They're under the army's watch in a security facility, and they're being painted as villains. So
Yeah,
you have two different mutant led teams. You have the MLF that's trying to take them by any means necessary, and then you have the Freedom Force.
Freedom Force. Yeah,
which is interesting too, because like I said last time when we talked to 86, I didn't know about them. So you have Mystique and Blob and Pyro, and I can't remember the other guy's name, and they're working for the government. That's kind of interesting. I mean, like I
Yeah,
didn't
it is. It
I
is. Yeah.
I kind of want to go
Obviously,
back
they
and
have an
read.
ulterior motive being who they are, but like,
Yeah, but it's like they're villains, right? So like
yeah,
to not have that backstory of not because like look, there's so many comics. I can only read so much. I obviously, if I'm going to go read old comics, I pinpoint what I want to read. So I don't have the entire history, but that's something that I kind of want to like dig a little deeper into and find out the impetus behind that. Like, where did that idea come from? But you can see here,
great page by the way. You know what I
yeah,
mean? Like we were talking earlier how Rob excels at like action, but like this is a pretty static scene. Like just giving you the sort of like thoughts and mood that she's in here, and like I mean, look at like the close-ups of the face. Like I also see the Arthur Adams influence in this page very much so.
same, same.
Yeah,
I love that. I love how you get closer and closer to her face.
yeah, yeah. Great series of panels. Like that's great. Like panel progression right there. I love his like I love like Rob's art in this period in his career, man. Like the hatching he does and like the angles that he does. Like
Well, I
he's
think the
really
biggest difference is the inking, right? I think,
yeah, yeah.
especially like if you look from this issue to the next, there's two different inkers. Like I'll flip back to the first page real quick. So this issue's inked by Bob Weisek.
Well, yeah, who's I mean, again, a name you're gonna see constantly in this period of Marvel. Like he
Exactly.
was.
But the next issue is somebody else.
Yeah,
We have a different inker. But yeah, I totally agree. I love this era of Rob, and that's not to say I don't like current stuff. But
no, no, no. It's just like
I
this holds a special place in my heart.
and I think it's also knowing like how young he was, and just like
Yes, dude,
it's
I
so
forget
cool.
about that, but he was a fucking kid pretty much when he was doing this.
Yeah, he
You
was in
know?
his 20s, right? I mean, I think he
Yeah,
was 19 maybe when he took on Hawk and Dove, and that preceded this run. Look, dude, he was young and he was energetic and he was living the dream, dude. Like this
yeah.
is exactly what he wanted to do. He fought for it, he got it, and he's making the most of his opportunity. And to see within just two issues like the creations that he's doing, and I think that there's a
I mean,
reason
it
why.
laid the groundwork for everything that happened in these titles for years to come.
Yes, I
Was
mean,
was
and it's interesting though because you don't see as much new creations now. There's a reason for that, and at least from my opinion, why I think that is, and it's because I don't think creators are getting that same opportunity where they're getting royalties based on their creations. They're getting a little small, not a big percentage, but a small percentage of ownership of the characters they create. I talked to Jim Shooter about it recently, and he kind of said that to me too, like that was important that he wanted, like, and look what was happening back then. There were so many
well, yeah, it's gonna give like creators like
incentive.
the incentive to create new characters, and it's just like like this period was so great because like you're constantly being introduced to brand new characters, brand new concepts, and they're exciting. I mean, like it's a way to keep the stories and the titles like like vital instead of rehashing the same old fucking characters over and over again. I mean, look
Yeah,
at like you said earlier, like right off the bat in one page, we're introduced to like five brand new characters. Some of which become part of like the X-Men like mythos for years to come.
yeah. I mean, look, dude, I get it. It's work for hire stuff, right? You don't own the characters, but there's a way to, I don't want to say reward, but like make the creators want to fucking give it their all. Put all
Yeah,
of themselves into it instead of maybe holding back a little bit. Because, like, I mean, I don't know if let's say I were to write for Marvel, I have no ownership in it. Well, why do I really want to create something for you then? Maybe I'll just keep
yeah,
that concept for myself. I'll rework it to my own ends and my own needs, but yeah, I
agreed.
think that's why some of these comics are so exciting, and I love this, they're about to leave Asgard and Warlock is turned into a ship. I
Yeah,
think that's pretty cool. You got Richter over here too.
and
They're
Warlock's a pain to draw, man. I know, like both. I know Rob mentioned it in his recent interview on Cartoonist Kayfabe, and Ed too, and he said when he had to draw Warlock a couple of times in Grand Design, like it's great visual character, but it takes a lot to draw him because he's so. so much line work involved in them,
Yeah.
you know. But to me, Liefeld was one, like after Sienkiewicz, like Liefeld is probably one of the people that drew Warlock the best.
Yeah, I love his rendition of Warlock, and
Yeah.
this is another layout that I really dig. This is something
Oh, dude, I love it. I
I would
mean that
definitely
that full
see.
page, that full panel, like quarter. I mean, I guess it's almost a half page, like introduction of Strife. Like, what a great visual, and like, I mean, when I saw Strife as a kid, I mean, that's some kick ass armor. He looks fucking badass.
Yeah, and this is definitely like an Eric Larson type of page that you see a
Yes,
lot. And I'm a huge fan of it. I love this, dude. I love this kind of stuff. And Strife, you just within one page, you see how terrifying and how
like the
violent.
presence of him.
Yeah, the capabilities of how violent he can get. He's like immediately goes to choking Wildside out for
Yeah,
kind of not living up
dropping the
to his
ball a little bit. Yeah.
expectations. So then you got again, you got the MLF. They're going after Skids and Rusty still. You got Cable in the background, kind of hunting them down.
I also love how great Rob is at drawing like these tiny little figures in like the smaller panels.
Yes,
Like he's still able to get like so much of the character to come out, and like just like like the layout and like the page design.
yeah, no, I mean, look, this is such a great issue, dude. You got them going through, and the mindless ones attack them as they're in the in between worlds, and they're coming back to
Yeah.
Earth. I love these. I love how Cable is just in the background and just
Yes.
hunting them down.
I also love like the speed lines and like the backgrounds of the panels. Like you got the manga influence. Like
Hmm.
you really do see a lot of manga influence in this issue as well.
Totally. This is
I
this is
love
like
that
my
image of
favorite
Cable.
panel.
That is
Yes.
one of my favorite images in the entire book.
No,
Like,
this
I
is
mean,
this is a great couple pages, dude. Fucking Cable just
firing
like
two fucking Uzis. You know what I mean? Like, I was so on board when I read this. Like, you have no idea. Like this, it was
I
such a
could
great time to be reading comics, man. Like, and you gotta think like this was before the internet. Like, the only thing we really had was like Comic Scene magazine and Wizard, and like those were for the diehards. Like, to think that this comic reached the level it did in that time, like with very little, like sharing of it like we have now. It's amazing. Like it shows you like what a seismic fucking shift this book was.
and it's look, and you still like you don't really know like what are his true motives. You don't
No,
really
yeah,
know
yeah, you're right.
going
Yeah,
forward.
he's in the gray. I love the bottom panel with Cable fighting Reaper. I
Yeah.
love like those weird lines in the background. Like that's like a Rob Liefeld like trademark, and I,
Yes.
I love it, man. Like it's such a cool visual. It lets the figure stand out.
And you're also
You know,
seeing that he's not infallible too, because look, he's like he even mentions like in the inner dialogue, thought balloons, he doesn't have the strength to swing his arm. So he's older.
yeah,
I mean, obviously the white hair kind of tells you that he's older, but like then like his hand starts melting when he touches her. Um,
yeah.
and then we go flip over. I love these two real quick. I just mentioned those profiles they used to do in the issue.
Yeah,
Marie Javins is an assistant editor here. She's the editor in chief of DC Comics right now, which is kind of crazy to like
that's
go
yeah.
back and
I
look.
miss those and the bullpen bulletins and all that. Like what
Yeah, Stan
that's the only
soapbox.
thing I wish I had the single issues and not this trade is because I love seeing that kind of shit too.
Yeah, but so like they're coming back. X Factor is kind of taken care of, which I also didn't know because Professor X is gone. X Factor's taking care of the New Mutants right now, and they mentioned the X-Men are gone. They're in the main city, which is kind of weird. So they're not off in the mansion anymore. And again, so we keep flipping back and forth, but now the MLF is here, and they're basically telling them you're going to come with us or you're going to die. And she has very little time to decide what she's going to do, and you see it right there. Rusty gets shot, and she decides, okay, I'm going to go with them. And you can see, like, I love this panel too. Like the anger,
Yeah,
the lack of a choice, because like, what is she going to do? Is she going to stay there and die, or is she going to go with them, even though she's part of the New Mutants? And she,
I also want to point out like the last bottom panel there with them escaping through Zero's portal. Like
yeah,
great rendering of like someone going through a portal because I mean that's really not something that's easy to draw with like perspective on a flat page. Like you really have to sort of like understand like perspective on a page and able to draw that like properly, and he does it, man. Like it really looks like they're phasing through a portal, which isn't
Yeah.
easy to do.
And then you have the last page, right before we leave, X Factor ship is falling. The New Mutants head off, go to get him, and then the bottom half of the page, Cable's captured. But like they know who he is, according to like what we're reading, right? They know who Cable is. They're kind of in awe of him, and you have this last panel, this close up of Cable, and he's just thinking, what he's gonna do, who he's gonna get for help.
Yeah, yeah, like again, like he's a badass, but he's also like starting to realize that if he's gonna accomplish whatever mysterious mission, and at this point we really don't know what he's up against or what he's trying to do, he's gonna need some help.
Exactly. And yeah, what a great issue, dude.
One of my favorite issues in all comic book history. I'm not afraid to admit that, and like I love it. It's probably like one of the issues that most affected me, made me a lifelong comic book fan. Like if I were gonna like make a list of like top 10 single issues for me personally of all time, this sucker would have to be on it.
Yeah, I love this issue, but for me it probably comes a little bit later in the series for
I
one
think
of
I
my
know which one you're
favorites.
talking about. Yeah.
Um, but yeah, it's a great issue. I'm super stoked we're doing this. I hope everybody watching is digging this, that we're going through these New Mutants issues, because I know I'm having a blast going back and reading them, talking about them with you, Manny. And yeah, for everybody listening and watching, make sure you hit that subscribe button, the bell icon, so you're notified every time a new one of these drops. Manny's links are down below. Comic Lounge links are down below as well. And on that note, we're out.
We'll see you next time, guys.